breaking news.
We are continuing to follow the breaking news that we're going to show you here. These are the first images coming in of what Ukraine says was a Russian bombing of a maternity hospital and children's ward in the southern port city of Mariupol. Ukrainian President Zelensky says that there are children under the rubble. There are no known military targets anywhere near this hospital. We've got a lot to discuss here. Joining me right now is CNN military analyst Colonel Cedric Layton. Also with us, Ann Applebaum. She's a writer for The Atlantic. Thank you both so much for being here. I want to go straight to a map. I want to show everyone, just to remind everyone, Colonel, right here you see where Mariupol is. It's a key port city in the southern part of the country. It's been under siege for days, Colonel. Why would a hospital be a target of an airstrike? What is the objective?
It certainly should not be the object of an airstrike, Kate, because that is an area that is absolutely prohibited, a category of target that is prohibited under international law. So it should be off the table completely. Now, the object of this, unfortunately, is terrorizing the civilian population. These kinds of attacks are typical, unfortunately, of what the Russians have been doing. And this is another example of proven that there is absolutely no way in which the Russians are following standard targeting procedures in this war.
And what we're showing right now, and you might not be able to see it, this is brand new video. I'm seeing it for the first time along with you, of a different perspective from outside of what looks like a very large complex. You can see smoke billowing, a completely bombed out car. It is completely and utterly devastated from what we can see. It's shocking that that building is even still standing as I'm looking at this. And Putin has now hit apartment buildings, hospitals, a maternity ward, a children's ward. What should that tell everyone about Russia's plan?
So Putin's initial plan was to occupy Ukraine quickly, take over the government, and declare that the country was now part of Russia. That failed completely. He had no idea that the Ukrainians would resist the way that they have. What he's doing now is really a policy of terror. He's trying to terrorize the population. He's trying to make people leave. He may be hoping to take over empty cities and then claim those or populate them with Russians. What he's really doing is a form of ethnic cleansing. The idea is to get rid of the population, replace them, get them away, murder them if necessary, or scare them. It's a policy that the Russians have used before. They used it in Chechnya, and they used it in Syria, where they also were known to actively target hospitals. They would get the coordinates of the hospitals from the UN and then target them on purpose. So this is a long-standing Russian tactic. We recognize it, and we should know it for what it is.
I want to do, before we move on to the next map, Colonel, actually what Ann's saying is something I've heard from other military men and women, which is this isn't just a Putin playbook. This is a Russia playbook. This is a Soviet playbook, and civilians are just pawns in it. Is that what we're seeing here? I mean, I know, Colonel, you can see what we're looking with this new video from outside this hospital, which is, I can only hope that this hospital was evacuated, but President Zelensky says there are children under the rubble.
Kate, I'm afraid President Zelensky is probably right, and Ann is absolutely right. This is ethnic cleansing at its worst. And it is also part of the Russian playbook. Go back all the way, we can go back way in history, but go back to World War II, go back to Chechnya, go back to any of these conflicts that Russia's been involved in. This is exactly what they do, and it is a complete violation of international law and standard wartime procedures.
All right, I want to turn now, as we're waiting for more details on this, I want to turn now to new CNN reporting from the Pentagon, which is more troops, more weapons, more assets, all headed to bolster the eastern flank of NATO. You see all of these countries in blue. This is where more assets are heading, coming from our Pentagon unit in their new reporting. And I want to read for you, Colonel, just some of the details here. Patriot missiles to Poland. The Army's 5th Corps also deploying 300 headquarters troops to Poland and Germany to provide command and control for U.S. ground forces. Air Support Operations Center heading to Poland and Romania, refueling and maintenance specialists to Germany, and now it will be a total of 100,000 U.S. troops expected in Europe. What sticks out to you here when you hear all of this manpower and firepower heading over there?
Okay, what we're looking at is a deployment in order to prevent war. That's basically what we're doing here. We're doing this as a preventive measure to warn Putin that if he moves one step into a NATO country, that we will respond to that using Article 5 of the NATO treaty. So that is what we're seeing. It's somewhat similar to what we did in the Middle East in the run-up to the first Gulf War and as well as the second Gulf War. And that is what is part of the U.S. playbook when it comes to these kinds of operations. Standard operating procedure, lots of folks going over, and it's something that will probably be an operation that we'll have to sustain for some time.
You know, Anne, one of Putin's original and longtime goals was to push away and weaken NATO. And if we can put the map back up, guys, beside me, because I want to just go back to it. The opposite seems to be happening here. That's to this map. Thank you very much, Rob. As you see the NATO allies, you see where they stand in comparison to Russia and why Ukraine is obviously in the center of it. This is just reinforcing exactly what Putin has not wanted. Was this a major miscalculation on his part? Because the opposite is happening from his original and longtime goal here. How does he react to this, Anne?
Yes, I think Putin was listening to Trump's denunciations of NATO and his distance from NATO during that administration, and he was following the divisions that kind of rhetoric created, and he imagined that NATO was now permanently divided and would never be able to reunite again. I think he didn't count on what the sight of tanks rolling across a European country would do to people in Germany, people in Italy, people in France, people in Europe, and of course people in the United States. It reminds everybody of a part of the European past that we all hoped would never come back, and of course that NATO was created to prevent. And so you have seen a really remarkable shift all across Europe as Europeans do now what should have really been done some months ago, which is to reinforce and rearm Ukraine.
And thank you so much, Colonel. Thank you as always. I really appreciated both of you walking through it with us just now. Coming up for us,